atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where nothing says lovin' like a wild boar in the oven. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks so much for joining us. Coming up on the worst people in the whole wide world weekly update, a female Democrat candidate for governor turns her campaign into a raging dumpster fire when she is exposed as a petrified, shrinking violet. A different female Democrat candidate for governor turns her campaign into a raging dumpster fire when she is exposed as a psycho bitch from hell. A candidate for state attorney general fantasizes about murdering his enemies and their children and doesn't lose a single endorsement over it. I'll give you one guess what party he's a member of. But first, regrettably, we need to check in yet again with our good friends across the pond in the jolly old Islamic Caliphate of Britainistan, where last week we brought you the news that the Labour Party government of Sir Keir and the Starmtroopers has installed a brand new woke lesbian Archbishop of Canterbury, and then I went on to crack a bit of a joke about how she's going to get right down to work promoting every sort of non-Christian, non-Anglican, non-British, non-civilized thing under the sun. But even I, your crusty, hardened old cynic of a correspondent, didn't fully appreciate the extent to which I totally wasn't joking. Because did you see what they've done to Canterbury Cathedral this week? I mean, homegirl really isn't wasting any time, is she? It is being called, without a hint of shame or irony, an art installation. And if you want to get a sense of what kind of art we're dealing with here, don't go to a portrait gallery. Don't go to a sculpture garden. I need you to put on your Kevlar vest, get strapped with your trusty gat, go down to the worst part of town, find the freeway overpass where the biggest number of junkies and vagrants are living, take a look underneath it, and there you will see the artistic tradition in question. Because, yep, that's right, we could not make this up if we tried. The Church of England has lovingly festooned the interior of Canterbury Cathedral with freaking graffiti. Now, the first and most obvious question that comes to mind here for most normal people is, who is this for? Well, that's difficult to say, but it ain't Christians. That is for damn sure. According to a statement from the cathedral's public relations department, and again, I am not making this up, this is not satire, it only sounds like a ridiculous, absurd parody of the way wokesters talk, but it is totally real. Quote, "This project focuses on partnering with marginalized communities, such as Punjabi, Black and Brown diaspora, neurodivergent, and LGBTQIA+ groups, to collaboratively create handwritten literature responding to the question, 'What would you ask God?'" End quote. Handwritten literature, they call it. And you know, I feel like the word handwritten is doing a lot of work there. And so, for that matter, is the word literature. Because when you have to go to Home Depot and show a valid photo ID, and then a guy unlocks a big orange cage and hands you a bunch of cans of spray paint, I feel like the thing you're planning on doing is not handwriting or creating any type of literature. Unless a picture of an exploding butthole next to the sigil of the 63rd Street Latin Kings counts as literature now, and who knows, maybe it does. Now imagine yourself as one of the religious pilgrims of yore, the people who traveled to Canterbury Cathedral for nearly 350 years to worship at the shrine of the martyred St. Thomas Becket, right up until Henry VIII got pissed off and tore the damn thing down because the Pope wouldn't give him a divorce, at any rate. Or better yet, imagine yourself as a modern pilgrim, a true believing Anglican, if indeed there are any of those remaining outside Africa. You've been saving up for years for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pay a visit to the archdiocesan seat of the supreme head of your global church. Or maybe you were just a fan of history and old buildings and nice things, and you've dreamed your whole life of being able to go and see this most magnificent example of early medieval Norman Gothic ecclesiastical architecture, the only edifice of its kind still in existence anywhere in the world, consecrated over 900 years ago. And you go inside, you're excited to take as many photographs as your little SD card on your camera will hold. And what do you see on every interior surface? Freaking graffiti. And it's even worse than all that, because this wasn't some miscreant criminal vandals who broke into the place to deface everything just out of some sense of antisocial nihilism. Oh no, this was done at the behest of the Supreme Head of the Church of England. And it will surprise you, I suspect, not much at all, to learn that the Cathedral Vandalism Project is the brainchild of a fellow called Alex Vellis, who describes himself as a vegan queer poet who uses they-them pronouns, as if anybody cares. And I know what you want now. You want me to read out an excerpt from one of they-them's poetic works. And yes, your humble correspondent will indeed oblige that request. And I reiterate, This is a real thing, and not a hilarious parody of that slam poetry scene from 21 Jump Street.
Slam poetry, yelling, angry, waving my hands a lot.
This is taken from a piece called Exodus, published November 2019, which appears to be a fun little ditty about hating yourself so much you would like to self-delete, but lacking the courage to actually do the self-deletion. So that's fun. Quote, "In the small hours, where the night hangs the day and birds are a collection of off notes, where the workman dresses his bathroom in white foam and says, 'Today is the last day I will do this,' on repeat, like clockwork, every single day. In the spent moments between tying shoelaces and wrapping fingers around steering wheels or clutching wallets that march down to bus stops to take stabs at photocopiers or sit in coffee shops or buy and measure rope in full-bodied lengths. That is where we know loneliness and futility and a singular, quiet death that cannot come soon enough. I see myself in his image, a martyr with nothing to live for but less to make my death a worthwhile venture. It is here, in the 2 a.m. phone calls to the Samaritans and the silent sobbing about being alone in the violent scars that trace my legs like track marks, that I realize I am nothing like him. Perhaps that is my downfall. You are not enough, they say, and it sticks with you. Papier-mâché ankles that arch and tear and fold and break and break and break. And you must act strong. Everyone is counting on you. You must act strong. There is a finality in strength, a fraught knot, used for hanging light fixtures or bodies. We can never unwind. We can never unwind. We can never unwind. End quote. Evidently, our friends at the Archdiocese of Canterbury saw that poem and said, "Yup, that is just the kind of self-loathing nihilism we need for our big new art project. Because what, after all, is Christianity about, if not hating yourself and the world and everything in it, right?" And I think we can all agree that English culture is in quite capable hands indeed here in the third decade of the 21st century. 200 years ago, all they had was some untalented hacks like Blake and Keats and Shelley and Wordsworth and Lord Byron and Lord Tennyson. And today, they have got vegan, queer, they, them slam poets spray painting graffiti on the inside of their cathedrals. And what an improvement that is, don't you agree? National, religious, and cultural self-loathing is really a thing to behold, isn't it? And on that note, we turn our gaze back to our own side of the Atlantic, to a different moral and cultural wasteland called the United States of America. I expect by now you have heard the story about a fellow named Jay Jones, Democrat candidate for Attorney General in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I am always reminded of that line that Queen Elizabeth I shot back at Sir Francis Drake when he informed her that he had named the first English colony in the New World, Virginia, in honor of Her Majesty's chastity, and she shoots back, "Oh dear, if I should ever get married, we might have to change the name to Conjugia." Good Queen Bess, she was a real firecracker, but the host digresses. So some text messages came to light this week, some vintage 2022 text messages, in which Jay Jones, who was then a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, he's conversing with one of the Republican members of said chamber, and he casually remarks that he would love to fatally shoot the man who was then the Republican Speaker of the House, and then he would like to fatally shoot his 2 young children, who I believe were aged 5 and 2 at the time, so that they could then die in the arms of their mother. But don't be alarmed, guys. This isn't just a bloodlust type of thing. Jay Jones doesn't want to murder a father and his 2 kids just for the sake of watching them die. Oh no, it's nothing like that. He just wants to murder them for the sake of political expediency, you see? Because if the House Speaker and his kids got murdered, then there would be a better chance of Jay Jones getting his gun control legislation passed. And what a fantastic snapshot of the Democrat Party's moral worldview, don't you think? Just as you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs, sometimes you can't pass your pet gun control bill without a few of the right people getting violently killed. And you know what else is a great snapshot of the Democrat Party's moral worldview? The fact that not one single elected Democrat, all across the fruited plain, from sea to shining sea, has rescinded their endorsement of Jay Jones. That is a real thing, not a single one of them. Every Democrat in the United States is still proudly riding the Jay Jones murder train. And the guy hasn't even apologized, which makes it all the more amazing. I mean, sure, we got the typical mealy-mouthed, non-apology apology that we always get when Democrats get caught fantasizing about the murder of their political opponents. And even within the pantheon of mealy-mouthed Democrat non-apology apologies, this one was particularly loathsome, I thought. You see, Jane Jones says you're not allowed to criticize Jay Jones because, come on, guys, we have all written text messages that we didn't mean and we wish we could take back. And that's what you're going with, my dude. I've got that correct. Best of luck with that. Because, yeah, I mean, obviously, we have all casually remarked that we would like to shoot someone's children and watch them expire in their mother's arms so that we can have a better chance at passing some stupid piece of legislation. I mean, who hasn't done that? Well, aside from everyone who isn't a bloodthirsty raving psychopath. But that explanation, it seems to be perfectly satisfactory as far as Abigail Spanberger is concerned. She, of course, is the former congresswoman who is the current Democrat nominee for governor of Virginia, who has really been crowning herself in glory for these past 4 or 5 weeks, beginning with her refusal to dismiss a high-ranking campaign staffer who openly and gleefully celebrated the killing of Charlie Kirk, which is a very outstanding look for someone who wants to be the governor of a state, I think. So there was a gubernatorial debate this week in which Ms. Spanberger faced off against winsome Earl Sears, who is her Republican opponent in the election. And I have to say, this was probably the worst debate performance I have ever seen from any candidate for any office in my entire natural-born life. And that's really saying a lot, because I have seen Kamala Harris and Joe Biden debate. Spanberger gets put on the spot for her refusal to pull her endorsement of Jay Jones, first by the moderator and then repeatedly by her opponent, Ms. Earl Sears, and my God, man. Abigail, you had to know this question was going to be asked. You had every opportunity to memorize some dumb little monologue to say in response to it, but she opted not to do that. Our girl Abigail flatly refused to engage with the question. She just sort of stuttered and stammered and vomited out some non-answer about, well, I'm running for the office of governor right now, and that's what I'm focused on, and blah, blah, blah. And not just her opponent, but even the moderators themselves seemed rather gobsmacked by her lack of preparedness. She winds up getting confronted with the question about half a dozen times in total. The first few times she just repeats the same idiotic non-answer.
Jay Jones has apologized and says he takes full responsibility for those messages. Ms. Spanberger, you have called the comments disgusting and said you condemn violence. The question for you tonight is, were you aware of these messages before they were released publicly, and will you continue to endorse Jay Jones as the next Attorney General of Virginia? You have 60 seconds.
The comments that Jay Jones made are absolutely abhorrent. I denounced them when I learned of them, and I will denounce them every opportunity I get. As a mother, as a public servant, as a candidate for governor, I denounce them.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many years. I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them, presumably for political reasons. But the voters now have the information, and it is up to voters to make an individual choice based on this information.
Ms. Spanberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor nominee. And it's up to every person to make their own decision. I am running my race to serve Virginia, and that is what I intend to do.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision. I am running for governor. I'm accountable for the words that I say, for the acts that I take, for the policies that I have put out.
Thank you.
I am responsible for the policies I put out and the work I will endeavor to do tirelessly for the people of Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger.
But eventually she just gives up on that even. She stands there, stone silent, staring straight ahead for a really interminably long period of time, a Joe Biden-esque period of time. We're talking 15 to 20 seconds, just standing there saying nothing, looking utterly mortified, like she is praying to be physically swallowed up by the earth itself.
That's why I'm wondering why my opponent won't say beyond it's abhorrent and disgusting, why she won't say it is not okay and that he must leave the race because Jay Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race, Abigail? You have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
And it's not like this was some sort of gotcha question, sweetheart. All she had to say was, no, I don't approve of Republicans and their children being murdered. But she couldn't make herself say it. Why not? Well, because it's pretty abundantly obvious at this point, and it keeps getting more obvious, that Democrats really do approve of Republicans being murdered. Which brings us neatly along to Katie Porter of California, also a former congresswoman, also a current candidate for governor. And her murderous rages don't seem to be confined to wanting Republicans killed. She also seems quite willing to murder news reporters and indeed staffers who don't behave slavishly and obsequiously enough for her taste. Also, here's a little known fact about Katie Porter. In the event of a natural disaster, her brassiere can be used as an improvised shelter for a family of 8. Possibly a family of 9, if it's an Asian family. Now, it's already a pretty commonly known fact in California political circles that Katie Porter is, like most affluent liberal white women, a psycho bitch from hell, whose rage-o-meter goes from 0 to 100 in the time it takes for a staffer to unwittingly wander into the camera frame when she is in the middle of doing a Zoom call. But it's kind of fun seeing the Jekyll and Hyde split personality thing playing out in real time, because there is no middle ground with this one. She goes straight from her fake, happy, chipper political persona. Oh my God, you're going to be so super excited when you get your new electric car. It's going to be super great, guys. Best thing ever. Because you know how things are now. 50-year-old women, for some reason, think it's cool and relatable if you pretend to talk like a teenage girl, like they are extras auditioning for Fast Times at Ridgemont High or something. And then the staffer wanders into the background. The staffer who is wearing a COVID mask and appears to be disinfecting a countertop, because evidently, also like most affluent liberal white women, Katie Porter is a hypochondriac germaphobe who thinks the China virus is a greater threat to her health than the fact that she is 5'6" and weighs 318 pounds. So she immediately transitions from the I'm a happy-go-lucky, relatable teenage girl fake politician persona.
I am. All right. $632, which is how much you save in fuel and maintenance costs when you replace your traditional car with an EV, with an electric vehicle. So I lease a Chevy Bolt. It is the best car that I have ever owned. I just plug it into the garage, 3-hole prong plug, and I never have to go to the gas station.
That's awesome. And $632 is real money. And I know here at UCI, we have a National Fuel Center Research Center, and they're also doing work on how to make electric vehicles affordable, including for low and moderate income people, working moms, single moms like me, people who really could benefit from an extra $632 in their pocket. And it's also not just the individual savings, but it's also the total savings for our economy. So I'm on the Oversight Committee, you might know, and that is where we did a study recently this fall in September. And what it showed is if we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems, and the state could lose
straight into the
get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles, it's that if we don't make a commitment to the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with electric vehicle saving us money.
Which, quite obviously, is what the real Katie Porter sounds like. And then she turns back to the people on the Zoom call, and it's right back to, hi, sorry guys, I'm back to relatable teenage girl mode, so let's take that one again, Kay? And she had a blow-up with a Sacramento TV reporter this week that you may have seen, where she just couldn't tolerate being asked any sort of follow-up questions, and she got so outraged that she actually tried to end the interview and storm off, and she even said, in apparent total seriousness, I'm here because I want to have a pleasant conversation.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%? Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're saying.
In a general election? Yes. If it is me versus a Republican, I think that I will win the people who did not vote for Trump.
What if it's you versus another Democrat?
I don't intend that to be the case.
So how do you not intend that to be the case? But you just said you don't need those Trump voters.
So you asked me if I need them to win.
So you don't
I feel like this isn't necessarily argumentative. What is your question?
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not
Correct. And I said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered.
I don't care. I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation.
And what a great snapshot of the world in which California Democrats have grown accustomed to living, where the news media are just dutiful party lapdog transcriptionists whose role is to invite you to give your monologue and then smile and nod politely until you are finished. She was so deeply offended that this reporter would have the temerity to ask a follow-up after she gave a feeble, fake non-answer to the original question, that she was actually going to get up and walk out of the interview. In other words, the reporter tried to conduct something resembling an actual news interview, and that was a bridge too far for Katie Porter. And she actually looked for a moment or two like she was fighting the urge to start throwing punches at this poor woman. I would have loved to see how she acted in the car afterward, on the way to the KFC to pick up a couple buckets of fried chicken. Like, who does that reporter think she is, trying to ask me follow-up questions like that? Of all the nerve! In fact, I would bet $100 right now that she called up the station manager and demanded the reporter be fired. And what's the net result here for California? Well, Katie Porter has probably ruined herself now, so in all likelihood, we will get Javier Becerra and his IQ of 47 to be our next governor, so bully for us, I suppose. And that's it, I'm done. That's all I've got. This has been the WPWWWWU for the 12th of October, 2025. I now transmit you into the loving custody of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.